story of Anime Bronson by Frank Langston, Down With It Records. One day, I was coming home. I got home and asked Anime what's for supper. And she said, we got fish for supper. And I said, okay. And I went down to the kitchen and I was going to sit down to eat, and I looked down on a plate and there was a fish. And I'm like, Anime, there's a fish on this plate. And Anime said, yeah, that's your fish for supper. And I said, Anime, where did you get this fish? Well, I got that there fish at the river. I went down to Captain D's and they was closed. And I went out there to Long John Silver's and they were closed. And I went and got a fish out of the river and I put it on a plate. Well, Anime, why did you put this fish on this plate? Well, that's what the recipe said. Anime, what recipe was you reading? That recipe I wrote. Anime, where did you write a recipe that said you put a fish on a plate? Well, that there recipe I wrote it on a sponge cake because I couldn't spell. So I drew a picture of a fish on a plate. And it says that's for supper. And I said, Anime, where's that recipe at? I want to see it. That there recipe is on that sponge cake. And I draw a picture on it. And I ate that sponge cake. You did what? I ate that sponge cake. Anime, you mean to tell me that you had a recipe and you wrote it and it was put a fish on a plate and it's ready to eat? That's right. I wrote that there recipe on that sponge cake and it said to put that fish on that plate and that's your supper. Well, Anime, what am I supposed to do with that there fish? I don't know how to eat no fish on no plate. It ain't cooked. Well, that there recipe says I don't have to cook that fish. It says put that on the plate and it's ready to eat. Well, Anime Bronson, don't you know how to cook? No, my mama didn't show me how to cook. She just told me how to write that there recipe, and then I didn't have to cook. All I had to do is put that fish on that plate. Well, Anime, I can't eat that fish because it ain't cooked. Well, that ain't what that recipe said. That recipe said you gotta eat that fish on that plate. Well, I guess I'm gonna have to throw this fish out here to the cat so the cat can have something for supper. Well, that don't say that in that recipe. That recipe said you gotta eat that fish on that plate. Another episode by Frank Langston, made for Pay to Play Radio, Down With It Records. Have a good day. Till we meet again.